Well, it's Friday, July 10th, 2026, and we are back talking about the case of the Ohio 16, the 16 children that were rescued out of a home in Ohio. I'm not going to get into too much detail until we get our guest on today, but it has been a week of twists and turns and so much news and just so much going on in this case. I expect that we are going to get into the great hiatus here pretty soon where we don't have anything coming out of there. But right now, we've just got so much to talk about, not only in terms of court documents, but also reports. We've had press conferences. There's just so much going on in this case. So stick with me. We are going to hop into this case. But before I turn it over to Javi to get the old, what do we call it? The intro music going. We got to go with the question of the day, right? Hold on. I got to do the right. Javi, do you have me with the right buttons? I don't know if you do. There we go. The question of the day is, dude, please work. There we go. If you were the host of a YouTube channel, what guest would you be dying to have on your show? I'd like you to answer that question. Put GF in the comments and tell me where you're tuning in from. And while you're doing that, enjoy this just fantastic tune. Javi, take it away. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to another true crime conversation with yours truly. My name is Gavin. What's yours? Glad you were here. Tell me in the comments. Once again, answer the question of the day. If you were a YouTube content creator, you were a host, what guest would you be dying to have on? And tell me where you're tuning in from. For me, that question is easy to answer. I'm dying to have on. Wrong button. This one. There we go. Elizabeth Jones from Hillbilly Crime. Elizabeth,
I
welcome back to the
love you.
show.
Thank you. Thank you. I love being here. Thank you for having me.
I love having you here. Glad you're here. I normally have like this crazy agenda over on my other screen. And today my agenda basically just says good hang with Elizabeth. That's what we're doing. We're just going to have a
All
good
right.
hang. But we're going to talk about this case.
Yes.
We talked about it on your show the other day, the case of, the case against Elizabeth Siders, her husband, Gary Siders, I call him G2, her mother-in-law, Christina, and father-in-law, G1, Gary here, who are charged with 16 counts each of what is it? Child endangerment, I think are the counts, right? They're second-degree felonies, and of course, we're in the beginning of this, right? They've been arraigned. They're starting to make motions for bond. G1 has gone out on his own recognizance. Elizabeth has requested the same thing. First of all, what are your thoughts on this case? Just brain dump on me. Let's hang it out here.
Well, my first question today was why has she not been released yet? Maybe I was confused. You said G1 was released.
He
Was G
was.
was G2 released?
To my knowledge, not yet. No.
No.
So what happened is Gary Siders, number one,
Mhm.
um, he apparently took a fall while he was in county custody and required medical attention. And the county, or the county prosecutor, a guy named Bill Archer, this is he held a press conference, and he said in the
Uh-huh.
press conference that they modified bail from the $300,000 bond to an own recognizance bail because they didn't want to bankrupt the county. Because if he was in their custody, they would be on the hook for the medical attention. Which I don't
Mhm.
know. I think it's kind of crappy. I think like okay, he fell while you had custody of him. So what you doing?
Yeah.
But that's what he said. So, but I didn't see in the news at all today while I researched it that anybody else has had their bond changed at all.
Oh, okay. So I got that wrong. Um, I had seen something where they said that Gary Siders had been released, but I was assuming it was her husband.
Let's
But I guess
see.
I'm wrong.
Let me see if Gary Siders real quick. Um, yeah, I think it's the elder one.
The
Here's
elder.
here is the thing: is they call him. Okay, I've talked about this ad nauseum on my channel. I bet everybody's rolling their eyes right now. But the the way their names work is that this guy is
Mhm.
Gary Siders Jr. That's his legal name, Gary Siders Jr.
Oh,
This guy's legal name is Gary Siders the second. So he is the junior's junior. But what people do is they say, this is Gary Siders Jr. and this is Gary Siders Sr.
yeah.
And so it causes tons of confusion. That's why I've just gone to G1 and G2.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna adopt that.
the elder Siders is out on his
G1.
own. G1 is on his own recognizance. Yeah.
All right. Well, uh, even with him being released, why is Elizabeth Siders still in there? I think that um, being a 13, now I know she was 15 when she got married and had the baby, but she was 13, I think, when she first hooked up with this family.
Yeah.
And, I feel like she has basically been kind of indoctrined, um, kind of, I mean,
Indoctrinated.
yeah, how does a 13, my children are 14 or 15 and 16. They just had birthdays. So they're both 15 and 16 years old. My children are not, they are good kids, super good kids, but they don't have the maturity level or the development in the brain to
Yeah.
like an adult would. And you think if she's been like constantly pregnant, back to back to back to back to back, I just don't understand where our criminal justice system is coming from with her, with
Okay.
respect to her, just
Yeah.
with respect to her.
I mean, if we do the math here, she's had, let's see, that I know of, there are 18 children, but people have said that there was a previous child previous to
Mm,
the marriage, right? So there could be 19 children. There were two that didn't survive. They were conjoined twins that were born at 24 weeks. So if you take 18 and you minus 3 for the twins, plus the one that she may have been pregnant with before, she's been pregnant 16 times
and
since.
the oldest child is not Gary Siders. It's some information I found said that she had a baby with somebody before him. Did you
Okay.
find that?
Yeah, there's just so many rumors. I don't know. But
You don't know what's true and what ain't.
yeah. But let's just assume like she's been pregnant 16 times since, well, at least let's say 15 times since 2008. That we know, right?
Hmm.
15 times since 2008. So my math is really, really bad, but that's 15 out of 18 years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That within that year she has been pregnant. This is something that, oh man, guys, please don't crucify me on this one, okay? Because I'm a dude, I don't get it. Okay, just please don't crucify me on this.
No, go ahead.
Okay, um, okay, my snuggly bear, my sweetie pie, my one and only.
No.
We have 5 children. That's a big family, right? We have five
Yeah.
children. She did not enjoy being pregnant. She did not enjoy it at all, right? She just like she wanted kids, And so she was willing to go through it. And I don't know what the psychology is, because it was like a week after our first child was born. She's like, yeah, I do that again. I'm like, were you in that room with me? Because you do that again, right? So I don't get it, right? But I know that there are women, because I've met them in my life, that say they love being pregnant. They
I
love
did.
it.
I did.
You
Yeah.
did.
I did, and it was different. Whenever I had two completely different experiences. So I had my first child when I was 19, and now that pregnancy was very difficult. I didn't have much support. uh, Fast forward to 35 and 36 years old, I get pregnant again with two more at
Hmm.
35 and 36. And that was the most wonderful experience ever with both of them. With Gregory, I just, everything kind of felt like it was for the first time in my life, I felt like my emotional and my mental uh, was stable
Hmm.
and I'm sure it was hormonal, something hormonal.
Sure. Sure.
Um, and then after I had him, I got pregnant again when he was 2 weeks old. So I had a back to back pregnancy
Oh
like
my
that.
goodness. Wow.
And but you kind of get all in the new baby, you get kind of caught up in the newness,
Hmm.
of the new baby. Now the situation that they were in, I don't know if they necessarily felt that. But
Well, one of the things I was going to say, and this is horrible, I'm not
mm,
going to name names, right? But I know a family who have that they are a nuclear family that by all appearances anyway, are functional.
mhm.
And they have children into, like, the number of children they have is into the teens, right? So, however, and she has said how much she loved being pregnant, and Kimberly would just roll her eyes and be like, "Oh my goodness, I don't understand you." But gotta say, cuckoo, they both were just a little off, right?
Well,
Just
I think that there's an emotional trauma component to this too, where I think women have babies to make somebody to love them. I
mm,
feel I feel like a lot of women do that. We don't have, our lives are such crap, and we don't have any, we don't feel loved. We don't feel that we have that parental maybe connection with ours. And so you end up, having all these kids because now I've got somebody that will love me.
ah,
Now, and that is a real, you'll find out now that I've said that, if you talk and listen to your viewers, women will tell you that is an absolute thing. Um, and like we have a family here in Letcher County that had baby after baby after baby after baby. They all on assistance, public assistance. The
mhm.
girl didn't have no education. She doesn't, still don't. She ended up finding her a man after she had had two babies. And next thing you know, it was just baby after baby after baby. And the local churches, are what helped her with all those kids for the first 10 years of their life. Now, and they're my kids' age. The older ones are my kids' age. So, we see it. It happens, and they're not as hidden as what the media and the government, I think, tried to portray this case.
Well, that's an interesting point, because when I was on your show a couple days ago, we brought up that, out here in Appalachia, there's there are pictures that came out of the house today, and unfortunately, I saw it and I went, "Yeah, gross. Yes, nobody should be living in that." But also, I've seen this 100 times before out where I live. Right? Um, let me see. Let me bring up like a one of these. Right? I'll bring up a couple of these. So this is purportedly the interior of the Siders' home. This was published by the New York Post. And yeah, I mean it's mugre, it's gross, right? It's just an absolute mess and disgusting.
But
But
how many of these do we see? That's what I said. This house right next door to me looks like this. But I mean, it's empty. It's been abandoned, but that's what it looks like.
yeah, this looks like a basement, the basement. And when I had Jen Coffindaffer on, she talked about it as if they were in the basement. I don't know if she had any insider knowledge on that. I don't know where the room was that the children were in. But yeah, this is
And I would,
gross, but it's typical for poverty-stricken areas out here in Appalachia, right?
yeah, and I would just about bet that this house looked like this before they ever moved in.
Or at least partly that way, right? They added to it or something.
Well, I think that this house was probably in this shape. They found this house and said, huh, it's got a roof over our heads. You know, they've moved in and they just never cleaned it up.
They
They
just
just
dealt
moved
with it.
it. They've probably just moved into a room that had the least amount of garbage and started living there. Did you happen to catch the second? I don't know if it's the second, but the other interview that her lawyer, Elizabeth Sider's lawyer, did?
No, what's his name is Tommy Stolly, right? It's
Tom
this guy
Stoll.
right here.
Yep. Well, he gave another interview, and I don't suggest that you play it because it hit copyrighted me for the other night whenever I played the other one. So I've appealed it though, and I'll win. But anyway, he said in this other interview that there's no evidence that these children were forced to stay in that room.
Mm.
They were completely free to come and go as they please. There was no holding them hostage in that room.
They just happened to be in that room when the authorities were there.
That's what he's
That
saying.
that house looked like it's about an 800 square foot house, right? I mean, when we look at the house, it doesn't look like a big house at all.
Mm-mm.
Maybe the kids' room, and like I'm trying to give benefit of the doubt here. And guys, again, don't crucify me, and we're gonna get to your comments here. But I remember when I was a kid, and my parents, when I was the earliest house I remember, it was on the Street of Dreams. It was called the Street of Dreams. It was a very very nice neighborhood, brand new home. And my dad lost his job, and they therefore lost the house. Right, they had to move, so we moved in with my grandparents. The first house we moved out of after, and when we lived with my grandparents, my parents lived in their guest room, and five of us, I'm one of five, we lived in the basement. It was dirt, right? It,
Yeah.
it was it was dirt. It was not. It was clean, right? And Grandpa put up like blanket walls for us, and it kept it warm and all that stuff. But I certainly, if somebody walked in there today and saw that five kids were in a room with blanket walls and bunk beds with, you know,
Dirt floor.
dirt floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the first house that we moved into after that, when my parents were kind of getting back on their feet, it was a two-bedroom home. And so my parents and my baby sister were in one room, and four kids were in the other. My oldest sister and us three boys, right? Again, blankets up to give us privacy and stuff like that. But if you're in a small place and you got 16 mouths, just playing devil's advocate here, maybe they just had a room that was the kids' room. Maybe it's a two-bedroom or a three-bedroom home. We got grandpa and grandma in one, got mom and dad in one.
I'd
Again,
say that
playing devil's advocate, but
Yeah, I'd say that it's not sectioned off like this is your room and this is our room. I'd say it's probably, everybody fend for themselves wherever there's a clean place to lay down, or not clean, but scoot stuff over. I
yeah.
gotta lay down. But That's when people are raised in that, when they're born in that, they don't know any different. And here's the big conundrum, if I'm using that word correctly here. Let me know if I do. Um, so are we taking children away from people now because their houses are dirty? Or I mean, I understand this goes beyond dirty, okay? But like around here, we had a case a while back. It's been several, maybe 20 years ago, I guess. They went in and they took this little kid from his mommy because their house was dirty. And I'm assuming it was on that kind of level, maybe. I don't know. But it was really a big thing. Like, is that the worst? Just because the house wasn't, you know, to
Yeah,
whose
I don't know.
standards?
If we're talking about like human fecal matter, and we're talking then
Yeah,
rat
that's
infestations,
yeah.
which brings in more cats, which brings in more fecal matter, which brings in roaches, and like,
I know. Well, this kid ended up getting taken, put in a foster home, and the foster parent murdered him,
oh,
killed him, killed the child. And so that was why it was such a big deal. You take this child out of a home that may have been dirty, but the mother loved him. The
yeah,
mother or girl, I don't even know if it was boy or girl. The mother loved the child.
yeah,
That they were their family, and I know the family that this happened to. Their family was kind of, poor, very uneducated, holler bound,
yeah,
coming right up out of the hollers. I don't think and there was a lot of disability. There was a lot of mental disability
hmm,
in that family that was hereditary,
yeah.
genetic. I mean, so what was could the child have stayed in the home and the environment that had been lived in since it had been born? Was it better to take that child and put it in a home where it was murdered?
Yeah.
You know,
First of all, the use of the word conundrum was well done. Bravo to
okay,
you, bully to you. Um,
thanks.
because it is a bit of a conundrum. On the one hand, I'm not in favor of giving any extra power to any government at any level than that it is absolutely necessary. I when we lived back in California, I was an executive at an audio company, and I happened to hire a woman who was a first generation born in the United States of Romanian immigrants. And she was so amazing that when we needed somebody else, I'd say, "Hey, do you know anybody else?" And before I knew it, we had employed like 20 Romanians, and they were all just different. Some of them had just like, as my sister would say about my brother-in-law, fresh off the boat. Some of them were fresh off the boat. Some of them were like the second generation, uh, industrious, amazing people. The reason I bring this up is they all belong to this same religion, and at that time over in, I think, Norway, that group of religious people, and they were all Romanian too, were having their children just taken away by the state because the state said that religion is abusive, right? And there was no recourse. There's no recourse. The child is gone. You have no idea where the child is in Norway. I remember it was called the Benevolent or something. I can't remember, but uh, so I always think about that when I'm thinking about cases like this. You know, do we want to give the community, the state, the federal government the power to just go in and take children? I'd say no. But there's also a line where, okay, they are tromping around in their own fecal matter, right? Right? It's just,
Yeah. Did you see the picture of Elizabeth Siders? The one, there's a blonde picture of her, and then
no.
there's the picture of, then there's the picture. Let me send it to you. I didn't realize that this was Elizabeth Siders in the photo, but
Oh, no way.
I
That
just
is
sent
Elizabeth Siders?
I just sent it to you. It's got both to your
Okay,
email.
let me check it.
It's got them side by side. But yeah, that's her. And it had to have been taken before. Was it? I mean, was it taken before she married this guy, or was it taken during this time period? I don't know.
Oh man. Okay. So I want to bring this up to
It's
on
unbelievable.
screen. Give me just a second, guys.
I saw that photo of the blonde the very first night that this case broke.
Wrong button. Javier is going to be mad at me, man. I'm pushing the wrong buttons.
Look at that. That's her. Look at her eyes, her nose. Look
Yeah,
at the
her brows.
difference. Look at the difference in her face, in her just the emotional difference, not the physical coloring and stuff. Just the emotional difference in her face. You can see it.
Wow. I wonder. So, I mean, do you think something happened recently? Were they were they just moving right along with their happy little family of 9, 10, 11, 12, and growing and everything's just going honky dory and then something happens?
Well, her attorney says that she told him several times, her and Gary G2, they both told, well, I don't know if he told him, but he said that they both said that they wanted a big family. They've always said that they wanted a big family. Well, you know what that tells me? That tells it just makes me think of a 13-year-old little girl who had had a horrendous child or
Yeah.
childhood up until 13. I mean, 13 is still a child, but she wanted somebody to love her. And I think
Mm.
she's just continued having baby after baby after baby, you know, just maybe they got caught up in it. I just can't even understand how you can look at 10 sitting there starving and then come on, let's go. We know what causes that, right? We know
What
what causes.
causes pregnancy? I think
Yes.
most of us do. I think most
So
do.
so
Sometimes I
something
wonder. Sometimes I wonder, but because people, you know, I need to be
something has
more
to be
graceful.
going
I need to give more grace to people. But you said something about like little kids. I don't think that my brain was fully like formed probably till I was like 35 years old.
on.
like,
Yeah, mine
like,
too.
uh, babies having babies, and I think about like my own parents, different generation, of course, right? But they were 18 and 19 when they got married, and 19 and 20 when they had their first baby. And dude, when I was 19 years old, goodness sake, I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine.
Yeah,
Well, this also brings up an interesting point of view, and that is I think I'm guilty of this. So I'm looking at myself in the mirror on this one. But in the true crime community, we do tend to go, oh, this is what they are accused of. They are guilty of this thing because that's what they're accused of, right?
yeah,
And it doesn't seem to matter how many times a prosecutor will say they're innocent until proven guilty. I mean, Mr. Archer said that multiple times, over the two press conferences. They're innocent until proven guilty. But in my mind, I'm not accusing you of this or any of our viewers of this, but in my mind, I was like, dude, they would not make this arrest if there wasn't a reason for it. And it's probably a good thing to have the lawyer out there going, no, they just wanted a big family. They were poor. They
yeah.
didn't know any better. I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore, man.
I think that's a great point, though. It's really a good point. And I think that the media, um, I'm guilty of that myself, by the way. So you are not the only
I'm
one.
not alone.
No, and I'm one of the biggest ones saying, look how easy it is for them to chump up charges on you. Look how easy it is for them to do whatever. And I'm guilty of that. As soon as you see somebody's charged with it, you're just like, oh, what? you know,
Yeah.
until you dig through and you dig through and you got to dig through the mess to find the truth.
At the same time, though, I mean, okay, like this isn't me. This is me playing devil's advocate. I'm a professional quibbler here, right? I like
Yeah.
to think these things through.
Uh-huh.
But if I were a police officer and like when I look at this house, when I look at pictures of this house, I can smell this house. Like I can
Mhm.
smell it from the street,
Yep.
right? Like, oh man. So I walk up to this house to serve a warrant for indecent exposure. I want to talk about that a little bit too, by the way. But I'm
Yeah.
going up there to serve a warrant, which means I'm going up there to arrest a dude, right? He's got charges. We're taking him in, and I can smell this, and I can hear children. Uh, I think the little spidey senses, I think the hairs on the back of my neck do stand up, and I think that I do call a supervisor, and I think if I'm that supervisor that gets that call, I do call the DA and say, can we get a judge to sign off on a search warrant? I want to go in here, right?
What about children's services? You've got a
Yeah.
baby. You've got a baby having babies. So she was a minor in the hospital. Well, I don't even know if any of them were born in a hospital because something I heard today was that one midwife birthed many of those kids. The
Yes.
same midwife. Well, where was her duty to report?
Right. Well,
Isn't she
and
a mandated reporter as a midwife?
I don't know. And, our experience with having children is we've done it in the hospital, we've done it at home. But I
Really?
also have, nieces who have had, their birth plan has been in a hospital with a midwife. So, it could be that they had a midwife that helped with the delivery of these, but it could have been in a hospital too. Those two things can be true at the same time.
Where do you even find a midwife when you're poor? The only midwives I know around here live up at the golf course,
Yeah,
honey.
it's
They're
not cheap.
making they make living in the $1 million mansions up there.
Yeah. The mother of my girlfriend, my freshman year of high school, was a midwife. That's what she did. And yeah, she did just fine.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was strange that I saw different apparatus and chairs and stuff in their house that I just didn't understand at 13 and 14. And I didn't want to ask. I didn't even want to know. I was happily naive, man.
You just knew that
I
that was something you
I
didn't
just
need to
knew
know,
that
did
her mom had a pager and it was 1989, so she must be rich.
that's great.
No, well, but to get back to your point, I'm sorry, a little jocularity there, but the yeah, this was a baby having babies, and where was Child Protective Services? Where was Youth and Family Services? Did they just could they fly under the radar because they moved so much?
Well, from what I understood, they've been where they're at for the last 4
4.
years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that ain't like they've just moved in,
Yeah.
and they've been going to the dollar store. You know that they've went other places. The dollar store ain't the only place they've went. And, I now don't get mad at me neither. I ain't fussing at that dollar store attendant, but in the same breath, yes, I am. How can you sit there in that interview and say, "Oh, they came through with $1 on this card and $1 on that card." You saw how dirty they were. You saw that they I don't know, did they have a shower where they could even take a bath? Maybe it didn't work. I don't know. But these people at the stores saw this.
Yeah.
Somebody saw this, and not one person thought that they could, approach them and ask them if they needed help. I mean, now there's a lot of times that I'll take a $20 bill and stick it in somebody's hand, quietly. They don't, oh, and I didn't have to ask them if they needed it. What
Yeah.
are they gonna say? "No, I don't," I mean, that's just it's like somebody that they see that you're walking on the side of the road carrying 2 infants on each hip, and they stop and say, "Oh, do you need a ride?" "No, I don't."
Right.
You know? It's like,
I
"Oh, I saw you walking, and you just call me next time." You
right.
know?
I hmm. I have mixed feelings about that. By the way, thank you for the super chat, Marie, and hello, hello. Hello, hello, saying Elizabeth had a baby at 13 with another boy who was 15. That child was adopted. She got with Gary too afterward. Thank you for that clarity. Um, and thank you, Marie, for she's calling us the dynamic duo over here.
Ah.
Thank you very much, Marie Jubenville. So the thing that I was thinking about is that dollar store attendant. I read that yesterday about how I think it was he, um,
Mm,
was second guessing. Should I have helped? Should I, And okay, well, good on you for learning and for personal growth. Well done, I guess. Um, but it also, again, to just play devil's advocate here for a little bit,
mm,
everybody who has children, I mean, the vast majority of us, 99.998% of us, have experienced brokenness, right? Now, I make a distinction between poverty and being broke. Like
mhm.
being poor and being broke are two different things, right?
Yes.
Poverty is a mindset.
Yep.
Sometimes it's one that you are born into. You don't know you have the mindset, but poverty is in your brain. Brokenness is an economic situation, right?
It's your wallet.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, and Kimberly and I have been broke multiple times over the years, and I feel like pretty much every young parent has. And
Yeah.
I like go to Walmart and go to the self-checkout to get my chocolate chips because I like dark chocolate, and I see little families with little babies trying one card and it's not going through. Oh, let's try another one. And oh, that's not going through. Well, let's see. I think it will go into this account. Let's try that. I see that.
Mhm.
Um, and in my mind, I'm a little bit different than what you just said, Elizabeth. I say to myself, that is building character. They are working through their problems. And I, and unless I were to see some actual like danger or
Yeah.
like, I've stepped in a couple times, sure. But like, how many times did I do that? Oh, let's try the business account. Oh, it's not working. Dang it. Okay. So, I've certainly been there multiple times in my life.
I
So
think that there's a difference if you just was to see somebody like one time, or if you live in a small town where the
true.
same people's coming through that store, like what, every day,
It's the
every
same
other
time
day,
every day too.
and you see the same, you see that. You made a great point about the poverty and the mindset. I'm a borderline hoarder, and my mom says that it's a symptom of poverty. That because I never had any stability as a kid, we were always moving and everything. So as my adult brain started to learn how to be stable, once I had these two at 35 and 36, that was when I started putting some roots down and trying to learn how to be stable and be
Yeah.
responsible and all that good stuff. Um, I had a point there and I
It
forgot
was
what it
about
was.
hoarding.
Oh
Hoarding.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And mom said that it's just now I want to keep everything. I have a hard time throwing stuff away. I have a hard time of letting things go because I'm afraid that I'm going to need that,
Hmm.
you know. I've got 2 Band-Aids in there, or so I've gotta put them. I gotta keep them. I might need
Yeah.
them.
No, that's completely true. Another symptom of poverty is being too giving.
Yeah,
Uh, because you experience being the one that is the one in need, and you will reach out to to the community, and other poor people will say, "Yeah, I will give you the shirt off my back. Here it is," even though
yeah,
they can't afford to do that, right? So there's
I do it
actually
all.
some beauty in that. I remember in I think it was in junior high. This is where I'm going to actually Wanda needs to play some flashback music for us, Wanda, if you don't mind. Okay, when I was in junior high, um, I think or high school, I can't remember. I did a report on World War II, and it was specifically the Battle of the Bulge. And I had learned on one of these reports in an encyclopedia, because I'm that old, right? And I had to go to the library for this information rather than the internet.
Yeah,
Uh, that survivors of that winter of the Battle of the Bulge tend to have more shoes in their closet.
hmm,
And the reason being, they didn't have good shoes and they were cold. And these were young men. Some of them, like my grandpa, was 17 and a half when he was there, having lied about his age, right?
yeah,
So he had experienced bitter cold in
mhm,
Belgium with no good shoes. And I had read that survivors of the Battle of the Bulge tended to have more shoes in their closet, and I made a mental note. And that winter, when I was back at Grandpa and Grandma's for our winter break, I go into my grandpa's closet, and he looked like Miranda from Sex and the City. It was just wow, all these shoes,
wow,
right? And the other thing was, Grandpa was known for his giant bonfires. That dude would not make a little fire to just kind of warm up a space. He would boil you out, and that was one of the things that came from that experience. So that what you're just saying about poverty, right? There are side effects from those life experiences that last I mean, when Grandpa died and we cleared out his closet, you better believe there were like dozens and dozens and dozens of pairs of shoes. The guy would not let go of them. It's really
yeah,
funny. So
yeah,
maybe when we look at this this woman, maybe she is suffering from the side effects of just a
well, the whole
very tragic
family
life.
the whole family's suffering the side effects of poverty. That's not just an Elizabeth Sider thing, that's an entire Siders. Poverty's a culture as well,
Sure.
it can be a culture too, and, we are taught that I heard a long time ago, whenever I was in school, that our personalities are formed by the time we are 6 years old. So any influence that's around a child until that age is going to be a direct, you know, link to forming their person,
Yeah.
right? And if we are not taught, like my mom didn't teach me how to wash dishes. Sweet Tater didn't teach me how to sweep floors and sweep and mop floors. Nobody taught me how to do any of that stuff. She was always at work, and I was what was called a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have any kind of parental guidance after school. So I was just running around everywhere. Those things, people don't realize how important those things that we teach our children. And I don't mean that we're going to teach a 6-year old how to sweep and mop, but it's like it's not just clean sweeping and mopping. It's a cleanliness
Yeah.
score. I get, maybe not score for lack of a better word, but um I don't know, measurement kind of thing. Do
Yeah.
you know what I'm trying to
No,
say here?
I perfectly get it. I shared with my audience last night when I was living in Argentina, maybe one of the most poverty stricken people I've ever known. They're still friends of mine to this day. They live down in Marcos Juarez, Argentina. Her house was constructed of dirt and tin. Dirt and tin, and it was spotless. Spotless. Just
Mm-hmm.
so well kept, right? And then we moved to Pennsylvania, where, I mean, yeah, there's poverty out here, but not anywhere close to third world poverty, right? But it's poverty, and I'm seeing stuff like, stuff like this in
Yeah,
Pennsylvania, right? Like
yeah,
I just, so it's a mindset, right? She was
it
the
is.
the woman that I'm talking about in Argentina was an industrious person who was taught that by her parents. She grew up
Yep,
that way, grew up sweeping the dirt, right?
yep,
Sweeping it and getting the lines right and getting the top dust off of it so the hard part is the part that you're walking, stuff like that.
yes.
Hey, let's talk about the indecent exposure side of this thing.
Yeah, that's another thing. Why was CPS not called?
So I'm unclear that there are different stories out there about what this actual indecent exposure was. The main story seems to be that he was going out on his front porch and taking a leak.
And the neighbor?
And neighbors across the tracks or whatever were able to see him and made a complaint. But it could be something like that, which, by the way, you shouldn't be doing that off the front porch. That's disgusting. Especially in a house surrounded by the woods, dude. Just walk another 15 feet and you are not exposing yourself to anybody. I do not begrudge him. By the way, listen, I know that like 92% of my audience is female. The satisfaction and freedom of standing next to a tree and taking a leak is indescribable. It feels so good. It feels like I am the king of my domain. That's what it feels like, right? It's amazing. Like sitting on the iron throne as your shins are getting splashed on. It does not matter. It feels great, right? So I don't begrudge you, dude, for doing that. Uh,
No.
but don't do it where people can see you, number one. But it also could be something on the other side of the spectrum. He could be out there as a pervert, exposing himself to people. I don't know what it is.
Well, if you remember in that press conference, they said that it was a completely other case, an unrelated case that led them to that house, and that they had been doing an investigation, a joint investigation with the feds or somebody. I forget who he said the joint investigation was with, and that it had been going on for about a month. And that they were coming to the close of that investigation. It had led to serving a search warrant on that home.
Oh, it was a search warrant, not an arrest warrant.
Yeah, it was a search warrant. And so they went in to do the search warrant, and they had no idea that there were any kids even living in that house.
Okay, it wasn't an arrest warrant. I had forgotten that detail. It was not an arrest warrant, it was a search warrant.
Yep.
So it
It was a
wasn't like I'm coming to arrest you, and by the way, smelling stuff and I'm hearing crying, I'm concerned. No, they were in the house searching and came upon this.
they found them. Yep. They said that they were shocked because they were not expecting the kids.
Okay, the search warrant angle, though, if he's just going out and taking a leak on the front
That's not
porch,
then
why would you
that's
need
not
a
the investigation. That has to be a completely different situation. And they would never tell in that press conference. They were very careful. They never told what investigation that was, like what they were investigating. They just kept saying that it was completely separate.
So do you think it was the indecent exposure case or do you think it was something else?
I think it was something else. I personally think that it'll end up being something like receiving stolen property, or
Or
something to that
CSAM,
extent.
maybe? I wonder if it's,
Well, they haven't said anything about that yet.
yeah.
So I don't know. They may not have been technologically advanced enough to do that. I mean, I know that they did have phones and stuff, but would they know how to get on the dark web and get on these apps like Telegram and trading that stuff? I just don't see them being that social even online. I
Yeah.
think I think they were together. So one of the things that I heard was that the G2 and or G1 and grandma both told him G2 to get him a girlfriend and marry her because they were having some kind of maybe some sexual issues with him. And so he got that girlfriend, Elizabeth, and
Mm.
look, I mean, that's why I said the other night when you were on my show, it's kind of like they sacrificed whoever was the adults around the situation, sacrificed her as a child to be G2's sexual gratification
Well,
outlet.
and that's one of the reasons why I was going to the CSAM thing is like, dude, look, again, from a man's perspective on this, uh, and of course, everybody's different, but we do have instincts that are part of the like little walnut size lizard part of our brain, right?
Yeah.
That we all share. When you have a child, you feel responsibility for that child. Not everybody, obviously, but good people do. You feel responsibility for that child, right? So if you're having 16 children, you know how it works, right? I kind of feel like that's an indication of some sort of sexual addiction
Or
or
abuse.
some sort of abuse, yeah, something like that. So that's why my mind went to CSAM. If that's especially like I I don't know that all 16 of those kids are hers
Or his.
or his.
They could be G1s. That's
Yeah,
what I was wondering.
yeah. G1 and Elizabeth, G1 and a granddaughter, G2 and a daughter. It could be all
Well,
sorts of stuff.
you think about how many dirty old men. I think about how many dirty old men I've ran across in my life, and Gavin, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're everybody's daddy. They're everybody's beloved gramps,
Mm-hmm.
grandpa. You know, that as a baby they just loved better than anything. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, a lot of them old men are dirty old men, and they
Yeah.
can treat their own granddaughter a whole lot differently than they treat somebody else's granddaughter.
Sometimes they're treating their own granddaughter the same way they would treat somebody
Yeah.
else's granddaughter too. Yeah, there's just illness out there for sure. So I
Yeah.
yeah, I think DNA definitely needs to be done because who knows? Who knows?
But I think that we've got a whole lot more families just like this. I think that this case, thankfully, they got the children, help. That's the main important thing here is getting the children out of that situation, getting them into homes where they can, hopefully thrive instead of stunt their growth and their life. Um, but we also need to realize there's a lot more where this came from.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And
Mm.
Jen Coffendaffer told me and reminded me that um, you know this happens no matter what your socioeconomic circumstance is. Just when you are rich, you're way better at hiding this. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
way more capable of hiding this than when you're poor, right? So for everyone that we're finding in a rundown, disgusting house like theirs, there's one happening in Beverly Hills or in the Hamptons or wherever. That's
Yeah.
that's the reality. It's pretty sad.
I hope that they end up, whoever's in charge of this will end up looking at her as a victim because I think she is. I think she's a victim of not just of people, but the men that were in her life. But, Like where was her father? She has two brothers, and they're out there talking now. I know
Yeah.
they were estranged for a very long time, and you can't really put that on the brothers either. She wasn't their child. She was their sister, but they weren't much older than she was. There wasn't really nothing they could do. They were trying to survive their own lives, you know. So I think we just have to look inside of ourselves on this case. And, if we see somebody at the dollar store, next week that is in that situation, paying with a dollar, if you got a $10 bill in your purse, why don't you give it to them?
I think that's good advice. We do need to extend more grace to our fellow brothers and sisters, and you know, and try to be good people. Hey, listen, I have a segment that I call Three Questions, where I answer people's questions, but I've got a little twist today. I've got questions for you. Are you game to answer three questions? Your
I am
game?
ready.
All
Yeah, I'm
right,
ready.
let's move into
It's
it.
three
Here we go.
questions with Gavin Fish.
Okay, guys, in this segment, what I normally do is I answer three questions that you sent to me at the email address, 3questions at gavinfish.com, 3questions at gavinfish.com, 3questions at gavinfish.com, spelled out. And I answer them in the order that I see fit, but I do not dodge the questions. But today we're doing it a little bit differently. Today we have got questions for Elizabeth, and there might be a second twist here, Elizabeth. Okay,
Okay.
all
Okay.
right. Question number one: what's the biggest misconception people have about running a true crime YouTube channel?
That we're rich.
Yeah, most of us are struggling, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's funny. No, it's hard work. This is not for the faint of heart. This is really hard work.
Yeah. And people think that you just did it by accident, You just kind of accidentally did it.
You know,
No. I work out my ass off.
there might be people that accidentally did it. Those might
Yeah.
exist. They are the 1% of the one percenters, right?
Yeah.
The rest of us have to work really hard. Okay, good. Question number two. What is the funniest, weirdest, or most strange comment you've ever had on your channel?
The funniest, weirdest, or strangest comment. Um, well, we dig into some conspiracies. We can have some conspiracy stuff on from time to time. I would probably say the weirdest, just to me, is the alien stuff.
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
you're not a alien conspiracy theorist.
no,
Uh,
I think that there is some kind of extraterrestrial life out there,
that was
but
my
I
next
don't.
question. What is your stance? Does intelligent life exist in the universe beyond us?
Well, I think it did does, and I thought that previously, but here recently I guess whenever they released like the Epstein files, they all around that same time they also released the UFO files. Did
Hmm.
you see that?
I wasn't interested in reading them, but I remember it happening. Yeah.
Well, I didn't read any of it, but I did happen to see a few of the photographs that they released
Okay.
of the actual aliens themselves, and it was just wild to me. I
So
had,
not only could there be life out there, but also there could be life that has reached out here, Men in Black type stuff. It's
yeah,
possible. All right.
that's strange.
No, that's a good stance. I was just watching The Day the Earth Stood Still, the Keanu Reeves, Jennifer Connelly movie from the early 2000s.
Yeah,
It's good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Any movie, listen, Elizabeth Jones, any movie with Jennifer Connelly in it is worth watching. Okay?
Okay.
Any.
Gotcha.
It could be the worst script ever. Watch. Hey, case in point, Top Gun Maverick. Worst movie ever. Jennifer Connelly in it. It's fine. It's fine to
Oh,
watch.
they're gonna crucify you on that.
I have a very specific type. Like, yeah, if you see my wife, yeah,
She's gorgeous.
she's just yeah, I have a very specific type. I was at the kids' soccer game a couple weeks ago, and I was sitting with the parents, and live in a small town, so we all know each other, and so I'm sitting next to a buddy, and she has a she has a daughter who's named after David Bowie, and uh, somebody was asking her, "Where did you come up with that name?" And she goes, Labyrinth. I I fell in love with David Bowie when I watched Labyrinth as a kid, and I was like, "That's really interesting." I had a completely different person I fell in love with when I watched Labyrinth.
Ah.
Okay, question number 3. If you weren't doing true crime, what completely different YouTube channel would you start?
That's a good question. If I weren't doing true crime, what completely different animals
Yeah,
rescue? I would do animal rescue videos.
those animal rescue. I have a segment called Good News that we're going to get to. It's
Yeah.
typically animal related. I think that'd be cute. That'd be fun to do. Okay, twist. So 3 questions. We've done 3 questions, but here's your twist. Here's your lightning round. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs,
Mountains or beach?
mountains,
Sweet or salty?
salty,
Sunrise or sunset?
sunset.
Yeah, nice. Books or movies?
Movies,
Yeah. All right. Pepsi or Coke?
Pepsi,
I'll also allow RC Cola if that one is your thing. Still Pepsi? All right.
Pepsi.
Mountain Dew. Biggest pet peeve.
Biggest pet peeve. Eek. Well, when people use big words and they don't know the meaning of them.
You don't mind if they're well spoken, but if they're just looking up words in the dictionary, that's a different thing. Okay. Last song you listened to.
Oh, the last song I listened to. It was one of our Red Book songs.
What's a Red
Jesus,
Book
take
song?
my hand.
Okay, cool. All right. Most used emoji.
The Laffy.
With the tears.
Yeah,
You do the tears.
yeah.
All right. Favorite comfort food?
Sideways too.
Oh, yeah. You like the tilty one?
Yeah.
Nice.
Favorite comfort food. Well, I don't get it a lot, but I like meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and peas.
Really? All right. I'll allow it. Okay. That's the lightning round. You made it through. Guys, those were our 3 questions. Now, Elizabeth, I'm going to forego the headlines because this has just been a good hang. Normally I do headlines, but I do have um, a good news article that I want to share with everybody. And you can hang out for this one. You okay with hanging out for a minute on this one?
Yeah, we
So,
still got another hour before my show.
oh yeah,
We're
and
good.
by the way, guys, Elizabeth runs Hillbilly Crime. If you stay on after this one, it will redirect over to her show for tonight. So stick around. I just realized I don't think I tagged you in the description, but I will. But
Okay.
because we're doing happy news, we do have to do our theme song. So here we go.
True crime headlines.
Oh, and we're doing good news, and so we've got to do our good news barbershop quartet. Wanda, take it away.
Good news ringing warm and clear,
Feels good, right?
bringing smiles from ear to ear. Happy stories, bright and true, make the whole world shine anew.
Fun fact on that, Elizabeth. Wanda, my music director, is the bass in that barbershop quartet. They do that live every time we do headlines. Her barbershop quartet comes in the sound booth on the other side of this camera, and they sing that every time. She's the bass.
Okay, that's awesome.
She's amazing, right?
She is.
Yeah, she's terrific. Okay, this good news headline is a little hoity-toity. Okay, it's a little hoity-toity, but I want to share it anyway because it makes me happy. The headline from the AP is that Paris opens 3 unsupervised Seine swimming sites for the second summer. This is why this is important to me. Paris is gross, man. Paris is gross. Paris is the equivalent of the Siders family house. Paris, like, everybody wants to think that Paris is the city of love. It is disgusting. Never would you pay me enough to swim in the Seine, ever. But apparently people are doing it. Here we go. Swimming in the Seine is settling into a new Paris summer ritual as the city on Saturday opened 3 supervised bathing sites for a second year in a row. The free swimming areas near City Hall, the Eiffel Tower, and in eastern Paris will remain open through the summer depending on water quality and weather conditions. Do you know what affects the water quality, Elizabeth?
What?
Raw sewage, because it is an old country, and if too many people are flushing their toilets, it leaks into the Seine.
Well,
It
that's what we deal with here all the time.
really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Out here on the Allegheny, there was like, and on the Clarion, there were old camps, old
Mhm.
like people's cabins that just had pipes flushing out into the river.
It's called straight pipes.
Yeah.
Every single coal camp in these mountains, that's what they did. They had 3,000 straight pipes that were going right into our river here. And I guess, what was it? Maybe in the 70s or 80s, they started putting in the codes for that kind of stuff.
Start cleaning that up.
Yeah. I don't know if they're national codes. I'd say they are, ain't they? Like,
I
what?
don't know, but we had to. They have a distinction out here for rivers that are like super clean rivers. They call them wild and scenic rivers, right? So if it meets a certain standard for cleanliness and for like having been restored, because we live in also coal and oil and gas country, right? So and lumber country. So for the last 300 years, this area of Pennsylvania has been stripped of its lumber, its coal, its oil, and all of the slag and all of the everything had ended up in the rivers, right?
Yep.
So over the course of many, many decades, it's been cleaned up. But you know where they haven't cleaned it up so well?
Paris.
Paris. Visitors describe swimming in the heart of the French capital as an unforgettable experience. I'm going to make up this quote. Yeah, I only had pink eye. Yeah, I'm not. So anyway, people are swimming in the Seine in Paris, and that is good news, I guess. Those are our headlines.
Wow. Well, we are used to that here. Like Hazard, which is only like 30 miles away from here, they still to this day, whenever it rains real big, their city's sewage runs down Main Street, like floods
Oh,
Main Street, and it's been doing that for years and years and years and years and years, and nobody's fixing nothing.
yeah, that's one of those things where they're going to have to get funding from somewhere because I'm sure their tax base isn't big enough to be able to pay for that, right? Where we live, we're actually going through a big sanitary upgrade right now because in many parts of the area, the sewage, and people are like tuning in talking about they're talking about sewage on a true crime channel, but yeah, just stick with us. It's cool. It's cool.
The
Um,
end.
yeah, we're just hey, people are swimming in the Seine, okay? Just relax.
Yeah.
Um, so I come from Northern California, and in the greater Sacramento area, I have to think about the town of this. I think it's either Rockland or Lincoln. There is like a clay pipe manufacturing company that has been manufacturing clay pipe since, they
Forever.
started manufacturing clay pipe. Is called Gladine McBean. The sanitary stuff out here in many parts of it is still Gladine McBean clay from California from 18 something. So they're digging that all up to put in modern stuff. We're all complaining about it because of the traffic, but the same thing would be happening. When a rainfall would happen, that the ground would saturate and then get into the sanitation system, and then that would not overflow it onto the streets, but overflow it into the non-sanitation water management, which then
Yeah.
just goes right to the river, right? So
Mhm.
that's what they're addressing right now. And of course, we don't have the tax base to pay for that out here. So that came through federal and state grants.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, the problem that we find here, or that I see, I'm following the money. Nobody
Sure.
knows how to. We don't have any forensic accountants. We don't have any investigators. You don't have any law enforcement around here that's educated more than a high school diploma. So what do they know about any of this stuff? They don't. Um, but so trying to follow that money, you get, say they'll have a $3 million grant, or a $500,000 grant, and then here 2 years later they're going to bring another $2 million grant in. But when they just bring them like little chunks at a time, when they do what they can with this, but before you know it, that money's gone, and then
Yeah.
you're looking like, well, what got fixed with that money?
You,
Well, nothing.
one of the
you know
things that bothers me
Nothing.
with grants like this, because those grants are tax money. They may not be coming out of your
Yeah,
local taxes, but they're coming out of your taxes, everybody's taxes, right?
they're coming out of your pocket.
Out here, there are these nonprofits where the counties will be a pass through for grants, and they're
Yes, they
funding
do,
these nonprofits
with
that
no
are,
oversight.
yeah, because they are nonprofits. They don't need the oversight, right? They're legally they need it, but they legally are, it's not required. And we had one here recently where it was a sad thing. The local newspaper that had served this area since the oil boom, uh, the family decided it was done. Right? They were closing the newspaper, and that's a sad thing. And they were our competitors for the company that I work for during the day. And so I was simultaneously going, you know what? Buggy Whip had to have an end too. Newspapers have to have an end. But it kind of sucks because I like the people that work over there. They do good work. Well, then one of these nonprofits took on that. They took on the online portion of it,
Mhm.
right? And they kept it afloat. And I suspect that a lot of that money is coming through grants that are state grants, federal grants, that everybody just goes, oh, free money.
Yep.
But it's not free. It came from somewhere. And how do I find out what it is that they're doing with that money beyond just their own self-reporting? It drives me crazy.
Because then, they can use that. They pay independent contractors. They pay, like this one nonprofit that we have here. It started in the 80s. It was a building nonprofit. Like, they were going to try and build low income housing for people, right, in
Right.
this area. Well, up until the flood of 22, they didn't really have a ton of funding. Well, when the flood of 22 hit, they ended up, like, most of the federal money, grant money that came to Letcher County, ended up going to them. They're the ones that ended up getting it. And here's what they ended up doing with the money. They hurried up and they took that money and they sunk it all into building materials, right? So
Okay.
we're spending that money. We're spending that money for all these building materials. Well, but then they go build a house with all those building materials, and then they sell the house for $250,000 and keep all the money. right? And
Yeah,
there's supposed to be it's supposed to be housing for low income people and this, but the low income people around here don't even qualify for the programs that they're running with these houses. And it's a very basic floor plan. There's nothing, or they wouldn't get the grant money, right? It's got to
right.
be very basic, just a one floor basic 2 3 bedroom floor plan. And one of the ladies that I know, she's a single mom. She had 2 daughters, both were adults. One 20 some, and the other one just graduated high school, going to college, but still living at home. She wanted they the purchase price of the house was going to go by her income. That's the only income based portion of it is there. And they wanted $250,000 for this house. And I mean, who can afford that
Yeah,
here? Number
yeah.
one. And number two, the low income people that you're claiming that you are servicing, they can't qualify for anything because you have to go through the bank. You have to have good credit to
Yeah.
qualify for this stuff. People around here ain't that, not everybody, but most people are not going to.
Well, and it's the purpose. The purpose for which that was built was for that crowd. Yeah,
That's
that's corrupt. That corruption just kills me, man.
and that money just circles around and around and around and around. Another big nonprofit in Whitesburg is Apple Shop. Multi-million, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars goes through that nonprofit, and that money never sees this area ever. It's just always running through the Apple Shop.
I went into the
Well,
wrong business. Why am I doing YouTube? I should be a corrupt
they
nonprofit person.
Listen, they've already got hundreds of millions of dollars worth of funding that goes through their thing every year. But the flood money, that federal flood money, they gave them $100,000 because their building got flooded. Well, can't they use the hundreds of millions of dollars that they've got to help do their own thing? Our tax dollars, all those donations that were sent to the people that live here,
Yeah,
that money was supposed to go to them, and there ain't a family one, not one in this entire area, not that I know of, that got any help. Zero. I mean, zero. The only help
wow.
that they got came from like FEMA. If they got help from FEMA didn't help a lot of people,
Yeah,
But that program, that Homes program, Homes Inc. It was it's always they're always telling everybody, oh, we're such a big service, we're such a great, we're building housing, we're doing housing for who?
yeah, yeah. So, what are you talking about on your channel tonight? I know that you're big into public corruption, but what are you doing tonight?
We're following the siders.
Good,
We haven't read the charging documents yet, so I got those.
good deal. All right, so guys, stick when this live stream ends, it will take you straight over to hers, and then I will rectify that. I forgot to put a link to your channel in the description. I will do that as soon as we're done. Elizabeth Jones, Hillbilly Crime, thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's been a good hang. I want to
Yeah.
make this a Friday thing, man.
Well, come on, honey. I'm always game.
Let's do it.
All
Let's
right.
do it because it's it's fun first of all, and it's easy. So,
Yeah. Friday.
all right. Thanks for being here, and hang on with me for just 1 second while I do my outro, guys. Thank you so much for spending your week with me. I do this Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, right here on this channel. You can also find me on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It does help the channel quite a bit if you are a premium member over on Spotify and you're on the rewatch crew. Watch it over there. It really helps me. Also, don't forget that you can follow me on all the socials. I'm always invite you guys over on Facebook to wrong button, Elizabeth. Ah, ha, ha, I got you there. There's Elizabeth. Oh man, I got you. But if you go over to the fish tank on Facebook, you can always catch me there. My buttons were wrong there, Javi. I'm blaming that one on Javier, Marcelo, Guillermo, Juanjo, Ruben, Navarro, Torres de los Andes. Javi, you need to repent, but it's all right. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat station. Until then, take care of yourselves. Good night.